The Rock and Roll and Coffee Show is brought to you by Writers and Rockers Coffee Company, keeping the music and memories alive with some damn good coffee. Be sure to pick up your Rock and Roll and Coffee Show coffee only at writersandrockerscoffee.com. And also brought to you by Retroactive, located at Broadway at the Beach in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, keeping you retro with everything from 70s, 80s, and 90s. ShopRetroactive.com.
It's the Rock and Roll and Coffee Show. Yeah, with Joe.
I wanted to bring you on the show because I saw that Freakshow had a new song out called Loving You, Loving Me. And I was a fan of Freakshow from the first record. So I was very curious when I saw you had a new song out. It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, just, little backstory on that. Jeff and I, the day he died, I asked the other guys to do this, and it was like a shock to everybody's system because this project has been going on for like a year and a half, and so Jeff was originally going to do this. We were going to do a new one. Frankie died, so obviously he wasn't going to be a part of the new one, and that last version of the band in that album had such a bad taste in its mouth because of what Jeff and I were going through with Frankie Banali. So we just kind of ditched that whole gig. You know what I mean? But we were thinking like, hey, let's do a brand new album, brand new songs, brand new vibe. And it didn't work out. So, but the remainder of the guys, we put together this new album, and then we got Carols Cavazo to do it. It's kind of funny how he was in Quiet Riot too. But the new version of Freakshow, with Greg Chaisson and Stet Howland and Carols Cavazo, it's a completely different, completely different vibe and different thing. We haven't even discussed if we're going to play like a couple of those songs. We haven't even discussed that at all, but there was a lot of hype with that, and a lot of people were really excited to see it, and it never came to fruition.
The first round of Freakshow?
Yeah. That first version with Tony Franklin and Frankie. But Jeff and I were so frustrated with how that all went that we just, we did a little tour in 2016. We did a West Coast thing, and we played those songs with a different drummer, and it was fun. We got to hang out and have a good time and see a couple places, but we never took it beyond that. So we were excited about doing this new record.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, he died before we could do it, but we're dedicating the new record to him. And it's a whole new ball game, but it's badass though, dude. It's like, you get so far in your life, you do so many albums. I've done Miss Crazy and a couple other bands, and, even the first Freakshow. And it's like, it's a breath of fresh air to play with rad dudes like this,
Sure.
Because they bring, they elevate whatever it is you create,
Right.
And
let's go back a little bit for people that don't know. Jeff, that we're referring to, is Jeff LaBar from Cinderella. Now,
yes.
You guys, when you started Freakshow, you were in Miss Crazy at the time, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what made you want to go away from Miss Crazy and pursue another project?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you how that happened too. It was the time where we had just got off a really good tour, and we toured for like a year and a half across the United States. We were playing everywhere, dude. You know what I mean? Like crazy places. Like, when you go to a state, they're all like, oh, did you come here? And I'm like, oh yeah, we went there, but we also went here and here and here. And everyone's like, what? So we played everywhere and got our name known. And our first album sold really well, to where we even did a reissue called Can't Get Enough, which had the first album songs and then some new songs. We had a new video. Everything was really rolling. And then recession kicked in. Barack Obama came in and became president, and everything went to shit, and we went in the tank. And I was just depressed because I did miss Crazy too, and it was well received. You know, a lot of people bought it, and we were getting ready to start a tour, but it didn't feasibly work out, and it didn't, you know, it wasn't, you know, it just like all the offers were like half of what they were before. It was really bad. So that didn't really happen. We only did like a handful of shows on that album. And I was just like, you know, this sucks. What am I going to do? We can't tour. I'm like, you know, in this band that has 2 albums out, and everyone kind of is this cool underground hard rock band that's making some noise, you know? So I knew Jeff from just some comments that he would make about Miss Crazy, because fans were saying, you know, Jeff, you got to check out this band, Miss Crazy, man. They're really cool, you know. And Cinderella wasn't playing at the time. You know, Tom was having problems with his voice. So I was like, I'm gonna do a solo album. So within like a month or so, I had all these riffs and ideas, and I wrote this whole new album. And instead of doing a new Miss Crazy thing, I just wanted to do something different and give it a different chance because of the situation we were all in, right? Money was tight. There wasn't a lot of touring. It was, you know, the end of 2008 going into 2009. So I talked to Jeff LeBar, and I said, hey, man, I'm going to do this new album. I got some ideas. Let me send them to you. And he wrote back, said, yeah, man, this sounds great. I totally want to do it. So him and I started it.
Okay.
And then I knew Frankie from just, I had him as a friend, and I just, I messaged him. This is back in like MySpace, right? When
Right.
things were good,
Right.
you know,
when
when things were, yeah, when social media was fun and stuff.
Right.
And I said, hey, man, I'm the singer of this band, and let me send you a couple tracks. And he writes back, you know, slamming songs, you know, made me feel really good. He's like, dude, this is great. You know, how have I not heard of you? And I said, well, you know, Rudy Sarzo was actually instrumental on helping us get off the ground, and he kind of got us a manager and put out the good word. And, you know, before you knew it, we had a hit on MySpace and 100,000 friends, and we were on tour.
Nice.
And, you know, so he's like, oh, cool. So he checked with Rudy to see all of that. And he came back and said, hey, man, these songs are good. What are you doing? And I said, well, what are you doing? Because I know, you know, the whole thing with, you know, with Kevin really sucked. And, you know, he was just kind of staring at the walls, and he didn't know how to proceed really, you know.
Sure.
And he was in a weird stage in his life. So I said, hey, I'm doing this. I got these songs, and I think they'd be right up your alley, because they're leaning, you know, they have some Led Zeppelin vibe a little bit, right? And, you know, minus the kind of, you know, the hard rock songs that people expected me to do, because I was just fresh with Miss Crazy over the year. And so I had the mixture of that sound with kind of a Zeppelin-y thing. And I told him I was doing it with Jeff, and he says, oh yeah, I love Jeff, this and that. And, you know, he said he wanted to do it. So I started, you know, doing, you know, tracking stuff with a click track and getting rhythms together. And then we were sending stuff to, you know, back and forth, and Jeff was practicing all his parts. Frankie was listening to things. And then he was like, just send me all the raw tracks with a click track, and I'll come back and I'll fly in, and we'll nail these tunes, you know. We'll go in a room and practice them to get some dynamics. So we did that. And then, you know, it turned into that. And then we were like, well, hey, who's going to play bass on this? Because, you know, now that we're this far.
Oh, so you didn't have one at the time, a bass player?
Yeah. When we were writing it, we were like, You know, I just kind of played I did all the like, you know, ghost bass and stuff, just so it sounded, you know, full, you know, so it wasn't all, you know that without
Sure.
bass sound sucks. So I did that, and we got the nucleus of like the rhythms and stuff, and Frankie actually ended up coming in first, even though I started the whole project with Jeff and we were doing all this, but he came in because he was like, you might as well bring in Frankie first, because then I can play to him and it'll be more of a vibe, you know? And I said, you know, you're right. So we did everything separate. And then Frankie and I mutually knew Tony Franklin. I met Tony Franklin years ago, before that, through Bobby Blotzer, who was a good friend of mine. And I did a lot of songwriting with, and was just one of my good buddies. And I toured with Rat when I was in a band called Amsterdam. And so we had a good relationship. So that's how I knew Tony Franklin. And then Tony also endorsed our bass player from Miss Crazy, Kim Racer. So she had all the bass stuff in a, you know, 11 Fender basses. He like went overboard. It was great. So I had that relationship with him already. And then Frankie's like, well, hey, he played on the last Quiet Riot record. You know, I'm all, I have that. It doesn't say, okay, well, it doesn't say his name, but he's on there, right?
Which record was that?
Rehab.
Okay.
That's the last one they did with Kevin.
Okay. I don't know if I remember that one.
And there's one song on there that was really good. I remember it. He was playing it for me when he was there. But you know, we did that record. Tony Franklin did the icing on the cake and kind of made it a solo album for himself. But either way, the album's, you know, is what it is. It did like 18,000 worldwide, and it got bootlegged like, you know, 60,000 illegal bootlegs in Croatia and Russia, which I guess that's a compliment. But, you know, so, you know, here we are now after, you know, I did like, you know, 6 more or so, you know, Miss Crazy records after that. But again, you know, in these times, there wasn't a lot of shows. It was just random shows, and I was just doing records and selling albums and stuff, you know.
How come Freakshow didn't go further?
Well, okay, what happened in the beginning when the album came out, it got a really big response, especially on MySpace. Like we had a song, Everyone, and it went on MySpace and it had 1 million plays. It was like, we were like, okay, this is great, you know? So like Wasp and King's X and UFO, they all reached out to us, right? Before we even got a booking agency, right? And Frankie, the guy that he was, shot it all down. He felt that we should have more money, and with the money that we were getting offered to open for these groups, we wouldn't have enough money for a tour bus, or we would have enough money for a tour bus, but we wouldn't make any money. So Jeff and I were like frustrated, and it ended up turning bad because, you know, his wife ended up committing suicide. Then we didn't talk to him for like 9 months. And then finally one day he wrote us, and the album was already out, you know, and we were like all just trying to keep things alive by, you know, posting some songs and talking to fans and stuff on MySpace. Jeff and I having long phone conversations, trying to figure out what we can do here. So we had, I mean, this story kind of turns into a nightmare, really.
Oh no.
It's like, as time went on, no matter what we set up for the band, we had like Arm Entertainment that handled like Poison and a bunch of bands, and they were going to give us like, you know, a good headlining amount of money to play like, you know, a club tour, all the big cities, you know. And this is like 2009, and they were offering like $2,000, which is a really good amount of money in 2009, plus merchandise, right? And Jeff and I were very excited. So we got the news and we brought it to Frankie, and he just shot it down. said, we need this, we have to have this, and if it's not enough money for me to go out and do this. So finally we got into like numerous arguments with him, and Jeff and I decided, like, look, Jeff had connections with both AC/DC drummers, Simon Wright and the bald dude. What's that guy from The Firm?
Mm-hmm. Chris.
You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about.
Chris Slade. I know. Yeah.
Chris Slade.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And both of them, we gave them the album, and they're like, hell yeah, let's go. Let's do this shit, right? You know? And Frankie went to agreeing to it, to saying he didn't like those guys. This is the kind of stuff we were dealing with.
But what did that have to do with if you got a
it
different
had
drummer?
To do with that he was the drummer on my originally solo album that I was doing with Jeff LeBar, and because he played drums on everything, he took over the project and basically said, and he basically threatened Jeff and I and said if we didn't do what he wished and how it went down, he had money and he would sue us and take it into court, like threatening us with attorneys and stuff. And so Jeff and I were like so bummed out that we didn't even know what to do, and we couldn't play. Even if we wanted to play with another drummer, we couldn't play with that. It's like Frankie was such a crazy guy.
Makes sense. You know? Yeah, that's
and,
too bad.
But he was known for that as time got. Like as I started talking to my other friends in the industry, I was kind of wishing I would have gotten a warning. But
yeah,
Jeff and I suffered with that, and that's why that thing never happened. It never went.
Too bad. That was a great album. I got it on iTunes. I didn't have a physical copy, but I bought it on iTunes. And to this day, when I plug my phone into my car, that automatically plays. I don't know why that album plays, but it just automatically just pops on.
So, great
album. I thought that was.
Yeah, that was a great record, man. Good times.
And then, so you guys at one point changed the name of the band too, right? To Welcome to the Freak Show or something.
And we had to do that because even though we couldn't copyright the name Freak Show, neither could Frankie Banali. So we should have just played as Freak Show. I don't know why. Jeff was just so worried that he was going to come after us. So we did this little keepsake record where we re-recorded like half the album and then threw on a couple new ones. And we had this little keepsake thing for touring. Like when we toured, we could sell that at our shows. And I don't even think there's any of those left anywhere. I have like a couple in my closet, but they were just a special edition thing. And because Jeff was worried that Frankie was going to come after us.
Man, did you ever get to iron that out with Frankie before his passing or no?
As far as all that went, we just put it under the bridge and yeah, we made up, because he was dying and he was not going to live. It was kind of clear.
Yeah.
And yeah, we patched it up at the end, and I told him just forgive and forget things, and it's not worth it.
Right.
Because right now, all you need to worry about is meeting Jesus, buddy. You know what I mean? I was real honest with him because it wasn't about bullshitting, right? I wasn't about a bullshit a guy who's about to die, right? We got to be honest with each other, But I'm glad that we did that. Never talked about recording ever again or doing another album with him or even letting him know we would. Just like the project this was that we have now, with that song, which ended up being the last song on the album. That was just the first song we had mixed. So we released that song because we were so behind. That's what the deal was, really, is we were so behind on finishing the album. And Carlos was just taking his time like a snail. But it doesn't even matter because Carols Cavazo is such a remarkable guitar player that he is so particular about what he lays down that I'm glad he took the time that he did, because it was so worth it, right?
Yeah.
What he finished. But that was the first song we had mixed, and our producer just mixed it up, did a quick kind of mastering job, and it sounds way better on the album that's going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
But that little single came out, and it just let people know that it was real, like it was, that it was going to happen, because some people are like, dude, are you bullshitting? Is this album good? Think because it was taking so long. Like, we talked about it like a year and a half ago, and then it finally, it's like the album's not even out yet, right? Even though it's coming out, very soon, like within 4 weeks, right? It'll be out.
Do we have a date or no?
Not exactly yet, but I mean, we just finished the artwork. We got it mastered, and it's going to press in like, a few days. So the turnaround and all that. And then the labels, really big on pushing it. We hired the PR guy for Kiss, worked for Kiss for 10 years. He's going to campaign us for a good couple months. And we got some brand new videos, and we got some great songs. Like that's like kind of actually like my least favorite song on the album. It's weird.
So you didn't want to wait. You just wanted to get something out.
Well, yeah, we kind of discussed it with the label and everybody, and we had the song, and we had it mixed, because it was the first song that was mixed on the record, and I sent it around to everybody, and then everyone's like, yeah, this sounds killer, and the label's like, yeah, and until the album comes out, let's just make this little lyric video, and we'll just see what kind of responses we get, and
what label is it with?
Eonian Records.
Okay.
And they specialize, in hard rock, worldwide distribution, really good stuff going on in Japan and Europe. And it's a great label that, really understands exactly what they wanted with this. Like, we discussed this fully. Like, they were really involved in getting this record done and how we were going to do it, and my techniques of getting riffs together and do my whole process, of how I do it. And then everybody getting involved in how we did it, sending stuff back and forth to each other. And it was great.
So you're the main songwriter? You write everything?
Yeah. But we did it all together. Like when you get the record, it's going to say all our names on the songs.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing it to where so-and-so wrote it, so so-and-so gets paid. It's like, this is all of us 25, 25, 25, 25, right? It's a group effort. Doesn't matter who wrote what, but without anybody involved, it wouldn't be what it is. Like, Carlos, that guy, not only does he do who's ripping solos, it's been a while since he's had full control of an album, where he's the main dude on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, this is a band where, you got your main every dude, and every guy shines, right? Like Greg, he has another band called Atomic Kings, where they just released an album like a few months, 3-4 months ago. And, but he hadn't really done anything like this since Badlands, and he brought it so ridiculously great. Like, him and Stet are just so awesome together, right? So my job was easy, because I'm the only guy in the band who had posters of all these guys on my wall when I was growing up.
Sure.
Where they didn't have posters of me.
maybe they do now.
Well, maybe we will, because I think we're coming out with a poster too. So
you have to tell them to hang it on their wall.
But it's kind of cool, that I get to play with dudes that were like heroes of mine. Like, when I learned to play guitar, I had this checkerboarded Hondo, right? And I had a Randall RG80 practice amp, and I was just learning how to do riffs, and I heard Metal Health on the radio. So I went and got that album. I got that, Queensryche's 4-song EP, and Metallica Kill 'Em All. And that's what I took the needle on the record band, showing my age, and I put it down, And I just started, you know, realizing that the Quiet Riot album was tuned to half steps, so I had to do that. But the other tunes were in 440, and that's how I learned how I know how to play guitar. And then after that, everything started becoming easier, right? I started hearing things like, oh, that's what he's doing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Were you a guitar player before a singer?
I'd probably say I was, but I could sing because I was that kid who, like, you know, around his friends growing up in, like, you know, the 4th grade, 5th grade, I would always try to imitate the bands that I was into. And I always try to imitate people, which I still do that to this day. Like when you get this new album, it's not like the first album at all.
Oh no.
Like I hardly even sing like the Miss Crazy dude, because I was so in Miss Crazy mode, right? Because that was reinventing my career with Miss Crazy. See, before that, I was in a band called Amsterdam, and I did albums with you know, a band called Trixie, and we had albums out all over the world and stuff. And I toured with Rat, with Amsterdam. So going under the name Ronnie Borchert, like I do now, I changed my name to Marcus Allen Christopher, which my middle name's Allen, my brother's name's Marcus, and my other brother's name's Christopher. So I made this name, and I put makeup on, and, you know, and then I changed my voice to singing, like, you know, that raspy voice that I kind of came up with in the shower. I swear, I never sang like that before, right? That whole Miss Crazy style. That was something I was just like, every once in a while, I try to do something like Joe Elliott in the shower, or like Hell's Bells, right? By AC/DC. And I'm like, whoa. And then I tried singing Cinderella, and I'm like, holy shit, I can do this. You know, like I didn't know I could ever even do that. So I've been in, like, you know, I've already done like 10 albums with other bands. And then I come up with Miss Crazy idea, and I switch the voice up, do something I've never done before, throw on makeup, change my name, and nobody even knew other than my close friends, right?
Okay.
So when I walked into Freakshow, the Freakshow 1, I was Marcus. Like every time I talked to Jeff LeBar, you know, he'd call me, or he'd leave messages. He'd be like, "Hey Marcus, what are you doing? It's Jeff." You know, with his Philly accent.
So he didn't know your real name.
No, well, eventually he found out.
Yeah. What was his reaction when you told him?
Well, it didn't come out like that. I didn't have to tell people. What happened was I don't know who, but someone on Facebook reported me and said that wasn't my real name, and that wasn't a real person. So they locked me out of my account, right? And I had to, in order to get back into my account, I had to send them a picture of my ID, but I didn't have an ID that said Marcus Allen Christopher, just my real name. So Facebook ousted me. And then all my friends were like, who the hell is that? And I'm all, well, that's my real name now. So,
yeah.
You
know.
Yeah. And they're all, wait, I know that dude from this band. And I'm like, yeah, I'm the same guy. But so, and the story, you know, long story short, I just started, you know, who knows me as that, they know me as that, and then they know me my real name, you know.
Yeah. So if that never happened, would I be talking to Marcus now?
You would be.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
That's funny.
But whatever, it works out, and now everyone knows all my bands, and you know, the label I'm with now owns my whole catalog, so they got it all, so it's all good.
Okay. What made you want to get Freakshow back started again?
Well, Jeff dying, because we were putting together a new project, right? We were going to do something brand new, and we were debating on whether to use that name Freakshow. We were thinking, like, should we just come up with something brand new, since we're going to have brand new guys, you know? And so we didn't actually finalize that, but he was going to finish doing a solo album with his son, Sebastian. And then once he was doing that, it was going to be called Labar. And once he was done with that, we were going to do this new thing. And I'm like, okay, well, I got Stet, you know, I'm going to start fishing around for bass players. And he's like, all right, I'm excited about it. Let's do this. And then when I started fishing around and coming down to, you know, who we were going to have, he died. Right. And I was just blown away because I was just talking to him, you know, and that's a whole nother story on how that all went down. But, I decided to keep the fire, you know, like I got a call from Stet one day and he says, "Hey man, you still want to do this album? Let's just find somebody else and we'll dedicate it to him. And let's do a killer album. I've always wanted to do this album with you anyway." Because Stet and I have been friends for like over 20 years, right? He played on this album I did a long time. We did the song for Shaquille O'Neal. So we played together. Yeah, for Shaq. And it was funny because once we gave him the song when we were done, Shaq's all, "It's okay." We were all kind of like, oh. But either way, that was, you know, and then so we wanted to play together for a long time. So I asked Carlos, you know, I just emailed Carlos. I'd known Carlos from when the first Freakshow went to shit. He kind of figured it was going to happen with Frankie, and he had a lot of bad experiences with Frankie too, right? And yeah, so we had that in common. But I mentioned to him what we were doing eventually and originally, and I said, "Would you want to come in and, you know, do this record with us?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, I totally would," you know. And he's been nothing but a great vibe. Like since he got involved with, he was kind of quiet in the beginning, and we were wondering like, shit, is he even alive? And then he just show up, and then out of the blue, you know, he just started sending us tracks of him doing this and that, and it was just going down the line. It was great, and it's just great. We came out with this album, and now we're all like, we were just going to do an album and just put it out, dedicate it to Jeff, and be done with it. Like we weren't going to do videos or think about playing live or get a booking agent or, you know, thinking all this stuff. But here we are now, right?
Right.
Because the album came out so good, we didn't expect it to.
Okay.
I don't know. I just kind of thought, you know, it would be where there's a couple cool tunes. I didn't think that it was like all the tunes were going to be great, you know?
Yeah. So it's actually a band and not a
Yeah.
project.
Yeah. It's like, it's more like, you know, Carlos was like, you know, I don't really want to play. Like he just did a King Cobra thing with Carmine Appice or a piece or whatever you want to call him. And Rowan Robertson and I think Paul Sorrentino. But, you know, that was that. And there was another guitar player there, and he wasn't, you know, I don't know that he's not going to play with them, but I don't think he really wanted to be in a band or do anything. And, but, you know, he was into this, and we had a great time together. Like when we got together to do the videos and we all were in the same hotel together, it was a really good bonding thing. We all had a lot of the same interests, you know, we got along, and it was really fun. And, you know, it turned into, well, you know, let's see what happens. You know, if the album's well received and, you know, the Kiss PR guy does his thing and the label pushes it and the songs are well received, let's go and start playing, you know. And Carlos already said, "Hey, I'll do some festivals." And, you know, Stet texted me today and said, "Hey man, my guy who books all the festivals for Metal Church, he wants to book us on you know, festivals."
That's fantastic.
And I'm like, damn. I'm like, this went to not playing any gigs with Frankie Banali to doing festivals with Stet Howland, you know?
Yeah.
Let alone two different kind of guys, you know. You got Frankie Banali, you know, that Quiet Riot guy, you know, and then he was in Wasp, and then Stet takes over in Wasp. But see, Stet's like Tommy Aldridge, you know. He's like he's that level of drummer.
He's a monster.
He's incredible. And and that's the funnest thing about this album, is that anybody that knows Stet is going to go, "Oh man, what did Stet do?" Right. And it was great, because when I initially sent it, I did everything to a click track, and I did a scratch guitar track, and then I sent it to him, and he did his tracks to that. and then I redid all the guitar tracks to him. So I replayed them to him, and man, dude, that dude's insane.
So this record was recorded all remotely, like you all.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, different places, different times, and it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were all it was like so easy to do because we were totally communicating, right? Then we're talking about this and that, and then we could send ideas and say yeses or nos and that. But it really, with Stet, you don't have to do that, right? Like I didn't have to go, oh, I don't think so, or try this. He knows, right? And so what he did is he recorded it and then listened back to it for a few days and then went, nope, got to do it again. And then I think he did it again. I think like the one we have is like the third time, right? So it's really good. Like the drums like really are the foundation of this badass album, to where pieces were made to the top of it, and then Carlos with his solos, and then he doesn't just, do solos. He does all the textures and all the rhythms. Like it's just like a full on album. We all did everything together.
And you got Greg involved as well.
Yeah. And dude, I got to be honest with you, and I won't lie. I listened to those 3 Badlands albums, and I just got that third one because I didn't even know that existed. There's this third one. Did you even know there's a third one?
I don't think I knew that either. What is that one?
There's this third one, dude. It just out of the blue. But, Greg told me the story behind it. He says, dude, we were going in to do our third album, and we went in the studio that we always record in, and everything was mic'd up all killer, and we just went through all the tunes. No overdubs. It was basically like a live album, but recorded without a crowd.
What was that called? Do you know? Do you remember? I may have known about that. I had Greg on this show a long time ago before I was even doing video. He may have.
Yeah. So anyways, but it's mixed up like a Badlands record, Mm-hmm. It sounds like in between the first album and the second album. So I have all 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just going, shit, what's this guy going to do? Because he's like, this guy's great, but he's never played with 2 guitar players. He's played with Jakey Lee, single, where he's just, but then there were some with rhythms behind him, but, he would play more like that kind of bass player where you don't, there's like Bob Daisley, right, with Randy Rhoads, and he ended up playing like that, he came in and really like, he did all that fancy stuff, And
yeah, that's how great. He plays. Yeah, we talked about some bass when he was on the show, and I remember him saying how he doesn't just ride on those notes, he's moving that bass around when he plays.
And I knew he was going to play killer too, because I got his address and I sent him the first Freakshow album, right? Just so he could get a vibe of my trip and how I could write, and I sent him his crazy album and stuff, so he could get a little into what my style was. And then he calls me, he goes, dude, Tony Franklin's on this. And how Tony Franklin plays, so he was like really into, he brought it like 100%. And I'd have to say, dude, this is like some of the best Greg bass playing. But you know what? If you do an album with Greg and I'm doing an album with any of these guys, of course I'm going to say that, right? Like whoever's watching this is probably, of course you're saying that, asshole.
Right.
But it's true though.
Yeah.
You get to a level where, regardless if you're playing with Jakey Lee or Pat Travers like he was, or Stet was playing with Wasp or Metal Church, you get to a level at your instrument and how good you are, right? And if you're not that good on the latest album you did, then why are you doing that album? Yeah. So
I see.
My whole thing is that, I'm that underground dude, and I've always been that, with whatever band I play in. And it's cool because I'm fine with that, because, I haven't been over promoted, and I'm not tainted. I got a pretty decent reputation, and playing with guys like this is a total honor, You know what I mean? It is, but I hold my own, you know, I can do this. You know, I love hard rock and it's been my specialty. No matter what album I've put out since the last Freak Show album, it all represents that level of hard rock that, you know, either you're called to do it or you're not. And you know who those guys are along the way. Some of them have even made it for like an album, right?
Right. Right. Have you
And
ever
then,
been asked to join any other bands?
yeah, yeah, I have. And some people think I was dumb for not doing it. And some people, you know, are like, understand why I didn't. But, and I don't want to name what bands because then
Okay.
they,
I was going to
you know,
say, can you name it?
I'd like to, but I, at the same time, it's like when you don't do something, then that band immediately becomes your enemy. It's weird how that works. But yeah, I got asked
Okay.
when I was doing the first Freak Show record at that same time, because of the circumstances of what was going on. A signed act came up to me and they're like, "Hey, we got this, we got this, we got this. Will you be our singer?" And I was like, well, okay, you know, I listened, right? And then I said, well, what it entails? Well, we do songs from our first album and our second album, but we have our whole third album written and everything. All you have to do is sing it. And right there, I was already turned off because I've never done an album where I don't like write something or do my own trip, right? I've never had someone tell me what to sing or whatever. So that was a really weird vibe there. And they were really adamant about that. So I didn't do that. And I'm kind of glad I didn't. And then you know, there was a band. Well, I was almost the singer of the Scream.
Scream. Yeah.
John Corabi. Actually, this is what happened. I was auditioning for Motley Crue, and John Greenberg was their management that I was dealing with. And John Greenberg got my package from Motley Crue's people, who was 10th Street Entertainment or 10th Street Entertainment people, gave my package to the Scream because they took John Corabi. So John Aldretti comes to my hometown in the Bay Area and finds me in a club and goes, dude, got your demo? My manager is so-and-so. We need to have a talk. And I was basically in the band.
What happened?
I learned Man in the Moon and I started learning their songs. And you know, Bouye was on the phone with me and going, dude, we were so psyched. I never talked to the drummer guy, but it was Aldretti. I was hanging out with him. And then I was sitting with Aldretti and talking to Bruce on the phone. And then John Greenberg was calling me and he's like, we're really excited. We're going to run your demo tape and you by Hollywood Records.
That was their label, right?
Yeah, that was their label. And they were like, Bruce is like, dude, we have badass riffs that are so much better than the first album, killer tunes. I'm listening to your demo of this band I was in at the time. And he's like, you know, I love what you're doing. Just do the same thing on this new record and everything will be great. I'm totally excited. You could do whatever you want. And then I was like, my early 20s at the time, barely. And these dudes were like, yeah, awesome. And then out of the blue, John Greenberg calls me and says, well, the label has this guy they want them to check out. That was it.
They didn't put a second record out, did they?
No. And this guy came in and then they brought in another dude who did scratching. And they were like trying to do some weird shit. And they were all miserable because I was talking to John and Bruce and they were like, dude, this sucks. But the labels will drop us if we don't get this singer. Because it's apparently someone knows in the label. And they want us to do some different funky style shit or something, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And it didn't work out anyway. So
yeah. Well,
you know. But the other band I don't even want to mention because
sure.
it's goofy. But you know, I did the freak show thing because I had the high hopes, and so we ended up doing that. And then I ended up quitting music for like 4 years after that whole fiasco with the first freak show. I went to back to Canada where I was from. I
Didn't do
lived there for a
anything.
while. I didn't do anything. I didn't want to do. I didn't want to write or play. I still kept in touch with Jeff LeBar and his wife Devonique. We would talk, and we were always trying to think of if possibly something could happen. But Frankie would just, you know, was just a cancer. And Bobby Blotzer would tell me, he goes, dude, why didn't you ask me to play drums? Come on. And I
Why
was
didn't
like,
you?
I know. I don't, now that I think about it, I don't know why I didn't, because,
Yeah.
Tony Franklin, I met Tony Franklin through Bobby Blotzer. So it's like, I know, I don't know.
So
He rubbed it in my face pretty good.
back up a little bit because you mentioned Motley Crue auditioning for that. Did you get to go in the room and audition, or did you just
I didn't even get that far.
didn't get that far? Okay.
No, because Nikki really liked John. He
Mhm.
loved Man in the Moon, and he
Sure.
loved their song, and he thought they were badass, but he didn't give a shit about the band. They just wanted that singer, and they wanted that vibe,
Mhm.
And that album's great.
Oh, it's a great
And,
album. Yeah.
and it's funny because I talked to John about that album a lot, and I got all the inside stories on that. Because when I toured with Rat back in a band called Amsterdam that I was in, John was the guitar player. He was the rhythm guitar player in that version of Rat. And he gave me the best Motley Crue stories. And if anybody that knows John always goes, hey, so this one time when I was in Motley, and that's how the story starts.
That's how it starts off.
But either way, we are here now.
Yeah.
And, it just really sucks that Jeff LeBar isn't a part of it. But, working with Carols Cavazo, listening to this record, when you walk away from it for a while, then you come back, and then you walk away and come back. I look at it, I listen to it like an outsider, and I go, son of a bitch, man. This is Stet Howland, Greg Chaisson, and Carlos. Who cares about me? Just those dudes came together on this record, and none of them ever played together before. And we're all playing together now, and it came out so great that I
I'm
can't wait for
excited
it.
to hear it. Yeah, I'm excited to hear it. How come now Greg's not with the band now, right? He played on the album, but don't you have Rick Fox in there now, right?
Yeah, Rick is playing. He's going to play live
Okay.
because Greg is like, he's got his Atomic Kings thing he does here and there, and then he's got a really good gig, a really good family, and he's got a good situation where it's like, look, man, I make this much a month. I'm doing really well. I don't want to screw this up. I've made enough mistakes in my life where I'm in a great place,
Yeah.
unless,
Understandable.
the album goes to number one and, it would outweigh his job.
Right.
We can't offer that when it's just a brand new album and we're still in the stages of, well, let's see how it does,
Yeah. Yeah. What video can you say what song you did a video for?
Yeah, we did a video for a song called You Shine. It's song number 3 on the album. And it was the real obvious one, like how you always have an obvious tune.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a number of like singles. We were having a hard time choosing the second one because we filmed 2 over a couple days, and we did completely different vibes on both of them. But we were like, man, should we do this one or should we do this? Like we have like we're not going to be done with these 2 probably. I could see us doing more than this.
Is there going to be another single before the record comes out?
Yeah, You Shine will be the first single.
But that's going to come out within the next couple weeks before the album?
Yeah, with the video.
Okay.
So we'll be handing over that, and I believe the new PR guy that we have, the label has, is going to be handling all the radio, other than my connections that I got for some good internet stuff that I know. I'll slip them all the track, but yeah, I think the main radio is going to be handled by that. And that's great because, man, that saves me from having to do, 100 emails to people.
And the album is called So Shall It Be, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is that album cover? Is that the one with there's like a horse on it or something, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's the
That's
album cover.
Yeah, that's one of the four horsemen, Death on the white horse.
Okay. Okay. Cool, man. Is it going to be CDs, vinyl? What are we doing here?
Yeah, I'm getting a hint. The label kind of hinted to me that there might be some vinyl going on here.
Hmm.
But yeah, CDs, and then digital everywhere.
Of course, yeah. Is it available for pre-order? Can someone go pre-order it?
I don't think it has been yet. I think
Okay.
what they're going to do is once it goes to press and all of that stuff, they'll do the promo for that.
Okay. So if
And I'm
people,
sure. Pardon?
if anybody listening wants to check out more information on Freak Show, what's the best place to get that info?
Yeah, well, you can follow any of us on well, except for Carlos. He's not on Facebook, but we're all on Facebook. Stet's on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. Greg's on Facebook. Rick's on Facebook. Carlos's wife is on Facebook, but
Yeah.
that's private kind of thing. But I'm sure there are people that are all, hey, can you tell Carlos this for me? But yeah, he's not on social media. But you can go to eonianrecords.com and they have like all my Miss Crazy albums and solo album on there. The first Freak Show album you can get there.
Nice.
It's a remastered version, and it has like a dedication inside for Jeff and for Frankie inside it.
Oh, nice.
So that's kind of cool. It's a little different. The artwork's better. The original album cover is the same, but the back in the inside, it's all different. It's fancy.
And you have, I believe there's a Freak Show Facebook page, right?
Yeah, I think there's a like page. I think
Yeah.
there is. Yeah, I think there's a like page.
Yeah.
That's been up.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited to hear it. I'm excited to hear the record. Because like I said, I've been a fan since the first one. What's that?
Yeah. I can't wait for people to hear it because it's it's a lot of more real singing, and then I channel a lot of different people on there. Like I was brought up on Metallica and Queensryche and Ozzy and then there's some of my Miss Crazy style in there too. But you're gonna hear some different kind of things in there, and it's cool because it's all a tribute to hard rock when it comes down to it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it and look forward to the next time.
All right. We'll get you back on after that album comes out.
You got it, buddy. And I'll tell the other guys to get with you too.
Yeah, give them my info.
You got it, bro.
All right, man.
Thanks.